everyone, welcome to Homeschool Autism Life. My name is Jamie. Today's video I wanted to do the next in our series regarding guardianship and looking after our children and stuff. So this video I was going to do a couple of things, and I decided when I looked at what I'm going to talk about, which is the will, that was one of those things that I was like, oh, well, it won't be a big deal and I'll keep going. And then I was like, oh no, it is a big deal. So I wanted to share the information because I know that I'm not the only one going through this, and there isn't really a list of all the things that you need or all the things that you need to talk about with your spouse or plan for or any of that kind of stuff. And so it was really important to me that I share that information with you. So in my previous video about guardian and next steps, I talked about going to see a social worker, and I talked about the importance of getting a provincial, state, or country ID, one of those things, before your child is 18. And I just, again, want to highlight that that is something that's really, really important because at least in my province, it becomes a lot more complicated when they turn 18 because the government looks at them as though they are adults. So if you can do it when they're like the 14 to 16 age, even 17, but if you get it in those ages, a parent is still required for you to be there. And it's okay if, like, my son's ID doesn't have on it, it doesn't say on it that he's special needs. His signature kind of proves that because he only got his first name printed on the line, but like they have this little box where it's like this big. Oh no, I've lost my paper. But it's really important that you do that. The next step that I wanted to talk about today was the will. And we spoke to a lawyer. Our next step was to speak to a lawyer. So we got all the information from the social worker about all of the programs that we could fill out and deal. But she did say essentially a lawyer is the next step, right? And so when we spoke to the lawyer was like, you need to have a will and you need to have these guardianship papers. And he gave us 2 documents that we need to fill out. Now, I don't know if when you talk to a lawyer in your area that they're going to have these documents ready. I'm going to guess that they do, especially for wills, because it's something that's kind of a regular occurrence. And boy, is it hard. I'm just going to come right out and say the reason why my son is almost 17 years old and we do not have a will was, number one, money. It does cost a certain amount of money to get a lawyer to fill out all of your will papers and stuff like that. I don't know how it is in the US as far as having, like, just filling out a paper and putting it somewhere and then the government follows that, or the person that you asked to be your executor or whatever follows that. I know some individuals have it hiding in their house somewhere, and then they hope that all the people that they've named, yes, I know, they will be able to do that. I don't know how that works. I just know that here they're like, you want a lawyer, you want to pay those fees. The other reason why he's 17 and my youngest is 13 and we still do not have a will is because who do you ask to take over if the worst should happen and you and your spouse have passed away, and now they're like, you want to do the job that I've been doing, right? Like, there's a question, and I don't know if that answer has been answered fully for us. My parents have been willing, but they also live in the States, and then there's a complication with that. And then there's the possibility, hi Bug, there's the possibility with my dad is currently sick and going through treatment and stuff, and so does that change things? And my stepmother was like, put us down anyway, and I really appreciate that. And she's been willing to, like, buy the books and read the books for Darian's home therapy program and stuff. And so she's the one that I really feel has been willing to invest the time and whatever. whatever, but there's complications. And then there's complications of, okay, do they fully understand? And so I wanted to make this video so that if you are already trying to think of these things and you're feeling overwhelmed, this might not help in the long run, but I wanted to share it anyway because it's stuff we have to think about whether we like the idea or not. Yeah, and so it's just important. So the things that you're going to have to think about with your spouse when you're doing up a will is who will look after, or who are the guardians going to be of your kids if both parents pass away. And again, like, what a joyous thought process, right? But it is important, because if that isn't in place and the worst should happen, then you've left it up to whomever takes that responsibility, and it might just be the state. And of course, that's like, yeah, no thank you, right? You also have to have an alternate guardian. So in the event that this doesn't work, then this, and again, I really, really recommend that those conversations are actually had with whomever you put down, because the idea of being surprised by that is not one that I am willing to do to anyone, even from the standpoint of typically developing children. But when you're talking about a special needs and lifelong guardianship, most likely, yeah, not cool, not a great thing. And then they're mourning your death while being very angry with you, and like, don't do it, don't do it. Then you have to look at who are the beneficiaries of your estate. Now, even if it's your children, there's questions about how much do they get per month. You know, do you want them to have a lump sum when they're 21 or 18, or do you want it to go out? And like, there's so many different questions on this questionnaire that I thought that I would share with you. Who looks after your kids if they're underage? Or, oh, Darian, you're knocking on my table, silly boy, you're making the world shake. Don't, no, don't. Hi, what do you need? Do you want mommy to come read your book with you? Okay, mommy will do that in a little bit.
Coke, Sherry, Harry,
okay.
Key, and Crocodile.
Oh, okay. Well, I can figure that out in a minute, okay? Mama's gonna finish talking to her friends. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. So you need to, discuss how that looks. So what I'm saying is that guardians is important, but you also have to go, okay, they're going to be their guardians until they're 18, but now Darian's going to be much longer. Are you going to share that with many individuals, or are you going to make different choices? So like I said, with my typically developing girls, am I going to split them up from their brother? Like, there's so many different thought processes that need to go into figuring out if that's going to happen. So you need to figure out who's going to be the executor and the trustees of your estate. And depending on how complicated your estate can be, like, I feel like we have a relatively simple situation. We don't have millions of dollars, we don't have whatever, but even we have a lot that needs to be kind of like sorted out and figured out. Then you have to figure out how much are you going to pay or compensate your executors or trustees, so that they're not just doing this job out of the goodness of their heart, which they might choose to do, but you're making provisions for them, saying, okay, we're willing for you to look after this, and dole out the money to our guardians and our kids when they get to a certain age. We're willing to pay you for that with this amount of money or whatever. Yeah, the money for your guardians. How much money are you going to give your guardians to look after your kids for however long they need to be looked after before they get to be 18? Who benefits from your whole, or who benefits if your whole family, your whole immediate family dies? again, what a happy, joyous thought. But again, it's like these are the questions that they're going to ask you, and you need to have an answer. And yeah, like my husband and I were like, we hadn't even thought of that. Trust for the residents and the family is like money. So again, you're going, who's going to be paying the mortgage? Who's going to be paying the land tax? Where is that money coming from? Like you have to have all of that sorted out as well. Digital assets. So who's going to be paying the Disney Plus subscription or the Netflix subscription, any digital stuff? What about the money that you pay to different charities each month? Like all of that has to be written down and calculated and whatever. Are you going to just cut it out once you, and then you have to leave your password and your information so that they can say, okay, this person's passed away and they're not sending you money anymore. Like so many things to think about. Real estate. So this is the part that I thought, oh, we're pretty easy. So we own our house, but I was like, okay, so then it just goes to the kids, right? It just, whatever. But it's not that simple. What if you have farmland? What if you have liabilities like loans or, like different bank accounts that you can go, what is it called? Oh, see, I wish my husband was here because he knows what these things are called. But if you're able to go under, who pays if you have a minus $200 in your account? Who pays that? If you have a business, if you have RESPs, which we do, RSPs, savings. So we have savings, we have life insurance, and we have pensions. Where does that all go if the worst happens? And then also they ask what your funeral arrangements, and I was like, oh my goodness. So even just that one step in, like I just put my toe in, it was crazy. And then I have a whole document about guardianship that I will share in a separate video that I will give you kind of what they're looking for so that you can make informed choices even before you get there, so you're not overwhelmed by the amount of information you need to capture and put together. But it's part of this process. The reason why they said like guardianship is important, but the will is just as important, is because the will, if you don't, you're going to have to deal with the guardianship, including if you pass away as guardian, and then you need to have the guardianship taken care of in the will part of it in the event that you pass away, right? So you're going, okay, we're going to take care of him. We have to, essentially take away his rights as a adult who can look after himself. But then the aspect of this document goes away once you've passed away. And so you need to have that will figured out. Now, again, it is not as simple to find someone who you believe can take on that role of being a special needs parent. Maybe it isn't. And if it isn't, and you have that person in mind and you've already had that conversation, bonus to you, you have it figured out. But for, I think, the lion's share of special needs parents, it is a hard thing to go, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I just want to encourage you that, again, the chances of that happening are very low. And if it does, it's most likely not going to happen as a surprise, right? Generally, and I can say this as having been somebody who lost their mom really suddenly, it happens, but it's not, 1 out of 10 people or 1 out of 5 people. It's probably one painful. In 1,000. I don't know. Yeah. Mommy. Yeah, I heard painful. You. Yep. So it's one of those things where, while it feels like it's such a huge responsibility, it's something that should be talked about with them, but don't yeah, like I get into the trap of going, okay, like what what about this if this happens with that person, or what if, you know, he has a meltdown and they've never seen a meltdown, and what is that going to look like for them, and are they going to be capable of dealing with it? And your mind can go into the what if game really, really easy, because you're talking about a what if, right? Like this is the basis of the entire will. What if this happened? And so then when you're a parent and you have all of these situations and you go, this is how I know I barely handled this situation. How is this person going to handle it if they're pushed into it or it falls in their lap, right? The big important takeaway is you're going to have that discussion. You're going to go, this is unlikely to happen. Okay? Very likely, very unlikely, excuse me, for this to happen. But I want to talk to you and I want your permission. I want you to think about it and make sure that this is something you're willing to take on. Because if the worst happens, I need somebody who's going to be there to catch him when he falls. And I need somebody who's going to be able to look after the girls, or I want my kids to stay together. I don't want to separate them. So I need you guys to understand, I need you to understand that this is a 3-package deal with a special needs adult, most likely, who's nearly 6 foot tall now, and that's going to be your responsibility, right? Because I can't. And I will be praying into the face of Jesus that he helps every one of them survive and do well if that happens. But I recognize that I need to kind of just let it go, because I can't prepare that person for every eventuality. I don't have the preparation for every eventuality. Darian is still surprising me with different behaviors and new things that we're going, okay, this is the new normal, right? So the big thing is to be like, I need to know that you are willing to do this in the event of something horrible happening to both of us. Now, like I said, chances are not, but this is the things that you have to think about and have written down and itemized, so that the lawyer, if that happens, can be right on it and be, those kids are taken care of, your finances are taken care of, the funeral arrangements are taken care of, all of those things. So yeah, I make this huge sigh noise because it is a lot. It's so much, but I want to be encouraging in this moment and say that it is possible. It is possible. It is possible. And it's very unlikely, right? So give yourself grace to go, okay, I need to make these decisions, but I don't have to have everything figured out, right? I need to write down the things that I have, the monies that we have, the things that we've, the bank account that we have money saved for our son. We need to figure out how those are divvied up among the trustees and the, like, all of those things. The executor, like, I don't know, Colin and I haven't even talked about an executor. Who's going to be the executor? I don't know. But these are things that need to be discussed, and this is kind of a video to let you guys know that this is what the lay of the land looks like, so that you can start thinking about it if you don't have this. And I know there are some online resources for wills and stuff down in the States. I don't know about Canada, but we just went with a local lawyer who's in our small town, and that's a great place to start, because at that very least, that little level, you will have peace of mind going, okay, we're doing the guardianship, which is a whole other video, but at the very least, if this gets taken away because the worst happens, then we have something else that is in place and legally binding. So I hope this video has been helpful. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you. But it's part of this series of having to deal with a child who will need long-term care, and I just prefer to have that information given to you, put somewhere, so that you are not surprised like I am constantly being right now, because there isn't a letter that says these are the things you need to look after. So again, I hope this is helpful. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.